What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY and the overall markets. I'm also going to give you guys a very quick preview about what's happening for next week, what you should be watching for on the charts. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. This offer is very soon in 2 weeks. Check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's talk about the markets. So looking at Tesla, we're doing a good job at holding up. However, there's a very tough zone of resistance between 230 and 235. And when Tesla hits this zone, we do have a tendency of seeing a lot of like chop, even some rejections at these high levels. So the question is, can we break this level to squeeze next week, or will we see a rejection? I'll talk more about that in just a couple of minutes. Let's first talk about the big catalyst for the market. The first thing happening for next week would be September 16, 2024 is Monday. We have basically a couple of bill auctions coming out, but it's all very minor. For Tuesday, it's also another minor day as we just have some manufacturing numbers in the morning, and then the market's going to have its time to just prepare for FOMC. And then Wednesday, September 18th, is going to be one of the biggest days of the entire year because we have the FOMC meeting, and it's going to likely be, it's almost certainly going to be the first time the Fed cuts. We're going to be looking for a cut by the Fed, and it's going to be huge for the markets and for our economy. So, what's happening with this cut? So, from the way this is going, the market thinks there's a 55% chance we get a 25 basis point cut. It thinks there's a 45% chance we get a 50 basis point cut. So it's almost 50-50 right now. The market's like in the middle. So we will see. I mean, if the Fed surprises with the 50 basis point cut, I think the market could squeeze to new all-time highs. If we get 25 basis points, which seems more pragmatic, I think that the market could still run, but it might not be as hard. So we'll see about that. We have to just wait and see what the Fed does. You never know. um, the inflationary data was decent. All the data has been quite good so far. So we will see what the Fed ends up choosing to do. I also want to note that as far as the way things are moving right now, this is what the earnings calendar looks like for next week. It's all very minor earnings, nothing too crazy. So that being said, that's what we're looking for the markets. Approaching FOMC on Wednesday, it's going to be pretty wild. And then FOMC itself is going to cause a big move for Wednesday and also Thursday. We'll also have some Philly Fed data coming out for the employment sector, but it's more minor, nothing too insane. But there's still going to be a big reaction on Thursday to the FOMC meeting on Wednesday. And then Friday is going to be a quiet day with just one Fed speaker. So that's what's on the agenda for the week. Approaching FOMC is going to be pretty wild. And then from FOMC and beyond is going to be crazy as well. So it's going to be a wild week, in my opinion. So what's Tesla doing? What is my view of Tesla? I just want to say that on the 4-hour time frame, Tesla has an inverse head and shoulders that's looking quite good. But in order for this to really play out, for Tesla to push very close to the 250 area, for this thing to squeeze, we need to break 235. We got to break 235 to see this thing run. If that breaks, we're looking for a big pump very soon. If we don't break this, there could be a big rug pull coming. So you want to be very careful. But as far as the technicals go, we are more bullish on Tesla because when you look at the 4-hour time frame, we're holding this yellow trend line. We've been uptrending. So I know it's a little hard to see because of all my supports, but look at the trend line, this yellow line. We bounced off this, bounced off this, bounced off this many times, and we're doing a great job at holding up so far. When looking at the daily time frame, Tesla's also looking more bullish because we are hitting this imbalance up here. But notice that every time we hit this 230 to 235 area for the last month and a half, we've been dipping and rejecting. So this is what's been happening since like July. Tesla is 235, it rejects, 235 rejects, 230 almost rejects, 235 rejects, 230 again, and we just kind of consolidate. So it's a tough resistance. But the more we test it, the more likely we are to try to break it. So it's very simple to play this. Okay, so what's going to likely happen to Tesla is we try to push a little bit more next week, but then there could be a little bit of a dip coming. I don't think we're going to break 235 immediately unless we get a bullish catalyst from Tesla's own news. We're going to likely chop around a lot for some time, but then FOMC, if that launches this thing higher, then inverse head and shoulders will play out, and then we will fill this gap and continue to squeeze to 250 plus. It's going to be a big pump by Tesla. That's like almost 10% up from where we currently are if we get that squeeze from FOMC, if we break past 235. If we get a rug pull, you're looking at the main support at this 220 area, not to mention like 215, but we still look bullish with the inverse head and shoulders. So I think there's a good chance we try to push higher. I think Tesla looks bullish. I think there's a good chance we try to push, but we will see with FOMC. Early next week, we're going to likely chop around a lot at the resistance. Now, SPY is looking pretty good. We have a nice cup and handle like structure, but here's the thing about this. We do have one issue. We might not get a clean break immediately because look at the chart. We hit this resistance at 565. Right? We have this resistance zone up here. There's a lot of resistance up here in the 560s, by the way. But we hit 565, rejected. We go up to 563, rejected, 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 rejected. Right? It's very, very tough to break past 563 to 565. And every single time we hit that historically, this thing has seen a rejection. Every single time since history, this has rejected off that level. So the question is, will we break this immediately? I think we could try to go a little higher, but there might be a little bit of a dip on Monday. We might dip closer to the low 560s, if not the high 558 area. Then we might just consolidate for a bit and try to get bought back up again. And then whether or not we break 556 may depend on FOMC. If we break that during FOMC, if Jerome Powell pumps us and the Fed gives us a big cut, this thing could squeeze to new all-time highs. If we don't get what the market wants, we could be looking for a nuanced reaction. If we get a 50 basis point cut, I think we're going to be squeezing the all-time highs. If we don't get 50 basis points, if it's just 25, we'll see. We still could see new all-time highs, but it's going to be a little bit more nuanced. In my opinion, I think that this looks like a cup and handle, so it does look more bullish, but we have to see if we can break 565 next week for confirmation. For ES, I presume what's going to happen is we have this chop area up here around this 5660 zone. I think we could push a little bit higher, but then once we get up to the 5660s, we might just chop around a bit. And we'll see if this breaks or not. If we do reject here, we'll be dipping back down. But this might see a lot of chop up in this resistance area before we try to break through this. So we'll give this the time it needs. Um, I'll see if ES could break this. It's going to be a little bit tricky. I think we could push a little bit higher towards resistance, and we'll see what the reaction happens to be. So give it some time. For Nvidia, in my opinion, looks kind of choppy right now between 118 and 120. If we break 120, there's going to be a much bigger pump coming. And if we lose 118, we could be dipping. We're kind of stuck in the middle. We'll see how this goes. I think this could try to push higher for this resistance. So we'll give this the time it needs. But overall, Nvidia has potential to push more. So we might start off with some consolidation, maybe even a small dip at first. But then when you look at the daily, despite the dip that might be coming for the shorter term, after FOMC, we could push higher because of the fact that we have that gap to fill. And we still look bullish on the daily. So there might be a small dip, some consolidation, and eventually we could still break out for that resistance. For Bitcoin, Bitcoin has 61,000 as resistance. If this breaks, I think we're looking for basically 62,500. If this rejects, we might be dipping back down towards 59,290. So we'll see if that breaks as we have this imbalance to fill. So give it some time. For NQ, we're trying to push higher for this resistance. We're looking for basically 19,600. If that breaks, we're looking for 20,000. If this rejects, we're looking back down at 19,200. Still looks more bullish to me. For the QQQ, we look more bullish. I think we might be pushing a little higher for that 478 area, but there's an issue. There is a tough chop zone that's kind of like approaching it the closer we get to about 480. So it might go a little bit higher than start to consolidate, but then FOMC could cause a big bounce and we could be trying to, push for these highs again, like 484. If 484 breaks after FOMC, I think we might be pushing all the way up to fill the gap and get closer to all-time highs. That depends though on what the Fed announces and to what extent they cut. But what I anticipate is we push a little higher, we consolidate for the time being, and then whether or not we get a big squeeze depends on FOMC. For Apple, Apple's kind of like range bound right now. We have these resistance zones to watch for around this 224 area. We have support at 222.9 and 219, but we're just kind of stuck in the range. I think we could push a little higher. If we do have that potential, we'll just have to give it some time, but we'll see how that goes. For the IWM Russell 2000, we have this resistance to watch for around this 218 area. If that breaks, we're looking for 220. If this rejects, we'll be coming back down. I see potential in this to push even more. So the daily looks pretty good on the IWM. We might dip a little bit, consolidate in the 214 area again before we try to break out, but I think this is going to be approaching the 220s most likely very soon. It looks very strong to me. For a few more, Coinbase, if we could hold above our resistance, I see the resistance right here on our 4-hour time frame. The 50 EMA, if we break 168, I see this pushing for the 170s. If not, we could dip. I presume it's going to consolidate a bit, then maybe break out later, so watch for that. On Amazon, we could dip a little bit. We might be looking for a dip towards 185 before we try to bounce and break out higher. We have this nice imbalance above. This could fail, taking us up to 188 to 190. We could dip a bit before we try to bounce, so give it the time it needs. For Meta, we are just range bound. We have resistance around 530. We have this support to watch for around this 520 area. We're just kind of consolidating. We could push higher. It is possible we try to get a push, but we have to try to hold support. I think we dip a little bit and consolidate, then we could eventually bounce. So we'll see how that ends up going. For Microsoft, we look more bullish. We have this 430 area as a key level. If that breaks, we look for basically 432, then eventually 434. And if we lose support right here, we're going to be dipping back down towards 427.5. I think this might try to push higher as we have a nice higher low being established. But look for consolidation because the last time we had 432, we did reject. So this might consolidate, go a little higher than consolidate. Then eventually there could be a breakout after FOMC. I still see potential. This chart looks bullish still. Google looks pretty good. The issue is we have tough resistance up here around this chop zone. So 158 is kind of tough. So is 160. We might consolidate for some time and then we'll see if we get a break thanks to FOMC. There is potential for it to break out higher because I think the daily looks pretty nice. We do have tough resistance though. That's coming up around 160. So in my view, I think we go a little higher. We dip a bit, consolidate, and we could still break out higher if we try to crack past 160. And the catalyst could be FOMC. So we'll see about that. With that being said, the market looks like we might see a little bit of a dip and some consolidation for the time being as we hit some tough resistance, but there is still upside potential through FOMC as long as the Fed gives us, a cut. I think that a 25 basis point cut could still pump us. A 50 basis point would a 50 basis point cut, would really pump us if we really were to get that. It all depends. But nonetheless, the market has more upside potential for FOMC. Approaching it, we might see some chop, a little bit of a dip and some consolidations. That's what my view is for now. So I'll talk more about the market tomorrow. I just want to say I really appreciate you guys so much for listening. As far as Tesla goes, we are doing a good job at holding up. There is upside potential in this chart, but we got to crack past that 235 area to really start pushing. I presume it's going to consolidate in the 230s, the low 230s for some time, but to get that break, we need a bullish catalyst, or maybe FOMC could be the catalyst. So it all depends. If we could break 235, and if we do, there's going to be a big breakout coming. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up about that. There's a lot of potential in this chart. All right, so thank you for listening, guys. I'll see you guys very soon in my next video. I'll be giving you guys another update about the markets tomorrow. And then on Sunday, I'll do a more in-depth video for like AMD, Palantir, Supermicro, SPY, Tesla, and everything else. That's my video for Sunday. So Saturday will be another video about Tesla. And then Sunday will be my more in-depth video about the markets. So be on the lookout for those for the next couple of days. Until then, have a great weekend, guys. I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow. Take care. Enjoy your night or evening wherever you guys are around the world. And peace out.